Okay. Okay. Hello. Test. Test. Okay. So, thank you for coming for the talk, and I wanted to give this talk since it's about Ruby. I wanted to give it in Ruby, so I wrote the slides in Ruby. So it's Ruby in Ruby, and it also has like parts where I'm running Ruby from Ruby. So I just came to Taiwan yesterday, and I'm pretty much enjoying Taiwan. Oh, the photo was a bit too big. Sorry. Yeah, but I just had some duck blood, and I think that's the 1,000-year egg there. It was really good, but a bit too spicy for me. I got the Zhongla, the middle version there, but a bit too spicy. So Taiwan matters in Ruby. So there's a really strong open source community here. Like I'm just so impressed with. There are like so many concurrent streams here at COSCUP. It's like the most I've ever seen is like 3 concurrent ones, and you have like 20 here. So yeah, definitely coming back here just to listen to the talks and everything. So my name is Sampo Kuokkanen. I work for the company called Evil Martians. Yeah, we have an office in Japan, and I'm the head of the Japanese office. And well, we should have made like a Chinese version of this T-shirt. Yeah, currently it's Evil Martians in Japanese, but we need to make a Chinese version of it, like for Taiwan, for next year. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so that's me and Andre. Just wanted to say something about Andre since he's talking tomorrow, so please go listen to his talk. It's about Kubernetes and Ruby, so that's going to be awesome. Okay, and like why, like right now, frozen string literals are probably more important than ever. I think is that because with AI, we are now using really, really long strings all the time. So it's like string performance is now even more important than it has ever been. So with frozen string literals, we can just have the strings, not have to make new objects every time. So that's okay. That's who we are, Evil Martians, and we have the Japanese logo too. But oh, hey Rudo. Hi. Yeah, but like I said, we are still working on the Chinese one. So if someone has like a nice translation for Evil Martians, please tell me. Okay, so before 2.3, strings were always mutable by default, and we could use freeze for constants, but this could lead to memory issues, since if you were creating many strings, you are always creating a new object, and this would then lead to garbage collection issues. So there was this issue just a little while ago, enable frozen string literal by default, like that got me really excited, and like we could finally get rid of the frozen string literal through comments from our Ruby code. And well, now we have chilled strings. I'll talk a bit more about them later, but it doesn't look like we are getting there quite yet with Ruby 4.0. So it's a long journey, but a bit more about that later too. So a live demo. So frozen string literals. So now we have with Ruby 3.4, we can run with warnings. We get a literal string will be frozen in future. And you can run it with debug frozen string literal for more information, so you can actually even find out where the string was created. So it's not only where it was mutated, but where it was created. So, and if you have with frozen string literal, then you of course get an error like can't modify frozen string MediaTek. Yeah, okay, my presentation software has a problem, like press any key, but enter is not any key. Okay, so mutable strings are convenient, a lot of fun, like especially if you are making quinaes or doing some like crazy stuff like with Ruby trick. But they are major contributor to garbage collection pressure. And that's why we are looking for immutability through frozen and chilled strings. Okay, so Ruby 2.1 was the first major optimization, like freeze now deduplicates identical literals. So same frozen string literals share the memory location. So if you have two strings that are both frozen, they are the same object. So like coming from a new Rubyist, like behavior like a frozen string literal equaling a frozen string is not equal would have been the case like before 2.0. Oh, and by the way, that AI Comedy Corner is running locally on my machine, so the bad jokes are new for me too. They're running like right now using async. Yeah, so how did we get the magic comment? So Akira Tanaka proposed it first in 2013, then it was revived in 2015, approved for 2.3, then implemented, and it was not like that is like a really great thing. Mats was saying that I don't like pragmas, but if it's required, then so we got it, but they were probably looking for something even better. It was actually interesting to look at the comments, like when we got that, like that it was Charles Nutter, the JRuby creator, was saying that it would be a very bad idea to have a directive that completely changes the meaning of code from one file to another. So that's kind of true even now when you think of it, like you have some files where just because of the magic comment your code is going to raise an error, but then in some files it's going to be okay. So it's even now it's probably not the best way of doing things, but they are, like I just showed you the Ruby issue, like we might be going to default frozen strings, so that's how it worked. Like the original Ruby 3.0 plan was to have default frozen literals there already, but then it was postponed, and now with 3.4 we have chilled strings, like they are almost like frozen strings, but you can change them. So this maintains compatibility, which is like the most important thing for Ruby. Well, not a really important thing for Ruby is compatibility, like that. code that was written for earlier Ruby versions will not broke down. So now it was actually interesting to think of it with frozen chilled string literals, that they were going to say that they were frozen, and then if you change them, they'd lose the frozen status. But after RubyKaigi, it was decided that that was a bit hard to understand and could lead to some bugs, so they got rid of that. And currently with Ruby 3.4, chilled strings return false. They just give you a warning if you change them, and have warnings on. Yeah. So the performance gains with just chilled strings are marginal. It's not like really huge performance improvement, but it's more like transitioning to frozen by default. So that's as the original plan was chilled through, and well, it's kind of true still that they act like frozen strings, so it's both of them have their own pluses. So now we have chilled strings. So with Ruby 4.1 or later, I am looking forward to getting rid of the frozen string literal through comments from my Ruby code. So if we look at the when did we get it, it was just like performance oriented. So people wanted to have this by default, but then it would change existing Ruby code. So in the end, why we got it was it's a really backwards compatible solution. Okay, we pretty much covered this one. This is just another one where I can show that executing Ruby code inside this program. There are really many ways to create or change strings in Ruby. So you can get a mutable copy with plus, add, or dub, or okay. So with freezing string literals would really cut into object allocation and reduce GG, garbage collection. So we are getting faster and faster, but why it would be nice to have it on by default is to have it on for all the gems and everything. One interesting thing is .dub was slow before Ruby 3.3. Adding an empty string to the string was faster. That's just because it was optimized better. And now actually you don't need to do this anymore. Yeah. So there's actually real world performance implications with this, and if we get to the frozen by default, it will probably make Ruby not a lot faster, but a bit faster. Well, some people are saying a lot faster. So why is it taking so long? Ruby takes compatibility over anything else, and this frozen by default has been in discussions for 10 years. There's a lot of community input, and a better safe than sorry kind of way of thinking. we are it's like don't break the code of the users. So it's been, I got a really nice comment from Samuel Williams yesterday, like, why are we in such a hurry, like, to get it? Like, it should be okay as long as we get it while we are live. So, no, hopefully, at least for me, I have a few years left, and I get to see it. Like, children born when discussion started are now teenagers is like really true, since I was just talking, like, Samuel's child is now 11 years old and pretty much a teenager now. So. Okay, so we're still debating that. This was actually why I wanted to talk about this. Like, well, the main reason. I found a really interesting F suffix. Like, there was an F suffix proposal before we got the frozen string literal magic comment. So you could add F to a string, and that way you would get a frozen string. So it would be like hello world is a normal string, but then hello world F is a string that's then, if you use that again, it's not going to be creating a new object. So the syntax was thought to be ugly and verbose, and well, I guess now looking at, like, there were people against the file level magic comments, but it might have been a bit better than, like, this is from Akira Matsuda's presentation that touched upon this, like one, like seeing code like string 1.0 f to turn it into a frozen string literal, and then calling 2f to turn it into a float. Like, you could have code like this with it, so maybe it was a good thing that we didn't get this. Okay, so currently what we can do is just to add frozen string literal true, and then actually create mutable strings when we need them, like with methods like dup, and then we should enable warnings in development. Like, if we have warning deprecated true, we already get the warnings with Ruby 3.4. Like, just when writing this, I was actually testing, and like, I've always written frozen string literal true, but then I started writing magic comments like frozen string literal false, and that made RubyGop really angry at me. So it's like the tool culture in Ruby. Ruby is like an interesting language that as a language, it's really, really free. It allows you to do almost anything. But then we like to use a tool like RubyCop that's actually really strict and limits our freedom. It's like there are two extremes in the Ruby community there. So Ruby's stability enables innovation, like Taiwan's semiconductor industry. And it's like careful iteration and improvement. Like actually reading Mame-san's defense of mutability was an interesting point. Like, immutability threatens Ruby's superpowers, like dynamically redefining classes and methods and runtime monkey patching, manipulating variables through binding. All this freedom in Ruby is what makes Ruby great. Like, there's this part of the community and Ruby developers that thinks that like this is the most important part of Ruby, so we shouldn't be like having frozen string literal through or like features like this, but make Ruby fast with all of the freedom it gives to us. Like, actually, like at that time, like Truffle Ruby was already really fast and had the same flexibility as C Ruby. Also, the Mame-san's drop dynamics proposal was linked there, and that was already also quite interesting. And like, I think we were talking about it at Ruby Kagi too, like getting a gateway in Ruby. Like, you'd have a certain point, like, and after that you couldn't modify things like classes, and so maybe that's one thing that could happen. Yeah, so just the warning deprecated true. Okay, oh, I have 5 minutes. So immutable strings can make the code safer, and like you can, if you have non-frozen strings, you could do like transform values on the constants, like maybe a constant array or something, and a hash, and after that you're actually changing the values of that constant. So we are going to from implicit to explicit. And so we had some like real world examples, like getting rid of duplicate allocations can get a significant performance boost. And so what's going to happen? Well, it looks like we are going to the way of frozen by default, but it's like we have, well, I guess you'd have to ask Maths like when that's going to happen. It looked a bit like maybe it's going to happen with 4.0. Ah, there you are. yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's like I was just talking like that. Is Ruby really going to have strings frozen by default? So the Ruby way, compatibility above all else, and this has been discussed for really long, and it seems like, yeah, it's not going to happen for 4.0, but maybe in the future. So now there's actually an Evil Martians tool for this. So Ruby 4.0 won't have frozen string literals by default, but there's a Freezolite gem by Vladimir Dementiev Palkan. He's our Evil Martians master wizard engineer. So it makes it so that if you use Freezolite, you don't have to add the magic comment by yourself. Like, you can use per folder control. You can have freezolite.setup and then give it a pattern and exclude, well, maybe your gems, and that way you will not have to have the magic comments there. So I think like a lot of us just don't really like adding the magic comment there. At least me, like, it the magic comment doesn't look nice. So with Freezolite, you can get the same performance without the magic comment. Okay. Okay, I have some sources there. Oh, sorry. I was testing this with a smaller font, so that's my X account. Yeah, you can like Sampo Kuokkonen, you can find me on X. So okay, I have 1 minute left. Let's see if I can get that one to, yeah, Freezolite. Yeah, Taiwan, thank you for having me here. Yeah, and if you have any questions, like, feel free to ask me in Chinese too. Yeah, I used to go to National Taiwan University there, but it was already over 10 years ago, so my Chinese is a bit rusty. So please ask me questions in Chinese, so I get to practice Chinese. Yeah. Okay, so, and if you want to, I have the slides online for this, and it's like running Ollama locally to create comments, and there was a dRuby powered notes server, but this setup was so nice that I didn't even need the dRuby powered notes server for this. Okay. Yeah, that's all the time. Yeah, thank you.